Greetings, gardeners. Today my subject is weird plant stories. Right here behind me I have a San Pedro cactus. And those of you who are psychonauts, deadheads, people who are really interested in the ethnobotanical uses of plants, you'll know this plant. It comes from the Andes of South America. The cactus contains a hallucinogenic compound known as mescaline. That's the same compound you'll find in peyote cactus. The plant is an excellent landscape plant here in California. It really is. It's, despite the fact that it contains a rather strange chemical, it's a legal plant, and so there's nothing wrong with having one of these in your yard. The U.S. government, in their infinite wisdom, just doesn't want to see you eating the plant is the problem. Anyway, it's a great plant. It's got great flowers on it. It grows really well here in the Bay Area. These things just love this climate. Easy, break a piece off, stick it in the ground, and so on. What I'd like to talk about today is some of the history and the legend behind this plant, and then some of my personal experiences that don't have to do with consuming it either, okay? So we can get off that topic. I'm not talking about drugs here. In South America, this plant is used by shamans in order to divine illness, to find lost objects, and so on. They'll make a brew out of the cactus, and if somebody has some sort of an infection or something, the shaman will take the brew. He'll also give it to the patient. They'll both go into a trance state, and they'll look for whatever the energy or the evil problem is with the patient and attempt to correct it under the influence of the cactus. The shamans claim that the cactus is imbued with a spirit, that it has a deity known as San Pedro. Probably the deity had another name before the Spanish came into South America and the Catholic Church came around. It was renamed to San Pedro, mostly to keep it away from the church. But anyway, it has a very, very long history and a very long belief that the cactus actually has a spirit that can commune with human beings. I always kind of thought that this was, you know, just ignorant natives perhaps deceiving themselves over the nature of the psychedelic experience that occurs from consuming the cactus, and that they were just thinking that they were in the presence of someone named San Pedro. The general belief amongst the population in South America would be that this cactus, if planted at the dooryard of your house, is a guardian spirit. That if somebody tries to approach the house who has evil intentions, that the cactus will either produce an eerie wailing and drive away the intruder, or a man in white, aka San Pedro, will show up and drive the intruder away physically, scaring the living daylights out of him. And so, considering this, I have nothing to lose, and so I went ahead when we moved into this place and I planted San Pedros in the back of the yard. I've got them along the fence over here. We got them up the front of the house by the front windows. I got one right next to the front door, and I can attest to the fact that they work perfectly, because in 16 years we've lived here, we've never been burglarized. Proof, right? Anyway, it's a good legend. I like it, and I think the cactuses look fine by my front door, and I love telling the funny stories about how they keep the intruders away. So, but my feelings about both San Pedro and the San Pedro cactus, and also my feelings about Native American tribes and the peyote cactus and their belief that the peyote has mescalito, a patron saint or spirit that exists within the cactus that teaches men the right way to live. Is again, I had said that I always thought that this was probably just, you know, kind of a delusion from the psychedelic experience that caused them to believe this. But my own experiences have changed my mind over time. Going back, about 15 years ago or so, there was a storm that moved into the Bay Area one night. It was a violent one, and it knocked down a whole bunch of the redwoods in Golden Gate Park near San Francisco. It broke windows at the conservatory when it came through. And at that time, I had a lemon tree planted along my fence, relatively new. And I had also next to it a San Pedro cactus. They were pretty much side by side. And then there's my partner, Ellen. Okay, now Ellen has no history of consuming cactuses. Okay, and so we can omit the fact that she had any connection here at all, except the night the storm moved in, Ellen woke up just prior to the storm, late in the night, from a dream, and woke me up to tell me the dream, that she'd been sleeping and suddenly the San Pedro came into her sleep, began to talk to her, and warned her that there was something bad about to happen, and it was really sorry about what might occur, but that there could be damage, and it just basically was a warning to Ellen that had come in her dream from this cactus. Well, next morning we got up, I walked out in the backyard, and there were a number of things kind of busted from the wind, but one thing that was very noticeable, and that was that my 8-foot-tall San Pedro cactus had cracked off, come down, fallen directly on our young lemon tree, and broke it off at ground level. And so it was, to me, quite mysterious, okay, because, again, Ellen has no history with psychedelic cactuses at all. Why the cactus decided to talk to her, I don't know. The fact that the thing would enter her dreams and warn her about danger prior to the storm moving in, and then we would find it broken in the morning, I have a hard time refuting it as having been a coincidence. And so I started to think twice about the idea that these cactuses have some kind of a consciousness that can commune with a human being. Then, a few years later, I have a San Pedro by my front door, and I was sleeping. Suddenly I popped bolt upright in my sleep. Something was calling me. I explain it. I got up out of bed, I followed my nose, it led me to the front door, I opened the front door up, went outside, immediately my eyes fell on a San Pedro cactus, probably weighing about 200 pounds, that was right out in my front yard. And it looked at me, I looked at it, and I said, okay, you've done this before, what's the problem? And I didn't hear anything back from it. So I get down, I inspect the plant, I look around, I don't see anything at all. I see no trouble. So I said, oh, just be quiet, cactus, and I'm going back to bed. So I went back to sleep. Next morning, then another storm came through. The cactus had cracked off, about 100 pounds of it had come down and fallen through my landscape, and in this case, narrowly missed everything of value. I mean, it was almost improbable that this big trunk laid itself out so that it missed all of my other plants. I really started taking things seriously at that point. I said, these cactus, they're getting into our sleep and they're warning us every time they start to crack off. And that's just too much to fathom. So I stopped doubting the people in Peru, and I began to also believe that these cactuses have a certain personality. There's a consciousness to the plant, and that consciousness is capable of moving into the human psyche, especially while we're sleeping. One of the interesting things that I'd been told about mescaline, which is the active ingredient in these plants, if you consume them, is that supposedly adrenaline and mescaline are almost identical molecules. That there's just a little tiny change down in the ethyl group that makes the difference between the two molecules. As far as our body's concerned, if we consume this compound, our body takes it on immediately and puts it into the adrenaline receptors in the brain. Well, once it gets in there, we go, whoa, wait a minute, that ain't adrenaline. But we accept it perfectly as an analog to adrenaline. And then, of course, the experience is otherworldly. It's something entirely, unnormal. Most botanists who study the cactus will say, we can't figure out why the cactus contains mescaline. there's no real botanical reason, physical reason for the cactus to actually be manufacturing this chemical. A. B. The chemical is almost an exact analog of adrenaline, which most mammals have and will respond to. Now, one, how does a cactus know how to make a chemical that will fit into an adrenaline receptor in a mammalian brain? And that to begin with is pretty odd. B, what does the cactus use it for? I mean, it doesn't work to deter anything from eating it, because the Native American church in this country is based on consuming the peyote cactus. The shamans and natives of South America consume this cactus constantly. In a sense, it's almost asking us to. It's a very strange situation. So, there's my weird story about San Pedro's. I have other strange stories about things in life, but the fact that some plants seem to have consciousness and can communicate with human beings under the right circumstances, I don't laugh about that anymore. There was a day where I would have said, oh, baloney, but I don't feel that way about it anymore. And I also have a lot more respect for most of the shamans that deal with plants and herbs that have had this knowledge for thousands of years. They really do often know a little bit more of what they speak than our scientists do.